You can identify over half of the ghosts in Phasmophobia in a single hunt without using evidence, and the remaining 7 ghosts outside of a hunt. Let me show you how. Starting off with a spirit, all you need to do is start a timer right when you smudge the ghost. If it takes 3 minutes or more to hunt again after being smudged, you'll know it's a spirit. Every other ghost except for the demon will take 1 minute and 30 seconds to hunt again after being smudged. Moving on to the Wraith, all you need to do is place salt in the ghost's path. If the ghost walks over the salt but doesn't leave any imprints, you'll know it's a Wraith. The Phantom is another easy test. All you need to do is take a photo of the ghost. If the ghost immediately disappears and doesn't show up in the photo, you'll know it's a Phantom. Another way to identify the Phantom is to watch for how often it blinks while hunting. The Phantom is much harder to see, and this can take a while to get the hang of. So I'm going to put up a short comparison between the Phantom and a normal ghost. Moving on to the Poltergeist, if you notice the ghost tossing multiple objects at the same time, or throwing them extremely far while hunting, you'll know you're most likely dealing with a Poltergeist. Other ghosts will not throw things as far or as often. The Jinn has an interesting ability where if it gains line of sight while far away, it'll speed up, but then when it catches up to you, it'll slow back down to normal speed. However, the only way you'll be able to watch for this ability is if the breaker is on. This one takes a bit more practice, so let me show you a quick comparison. Despite being one of the most dangerous ghosts, the Revenant is very easy to identify, being extremely slow with a speed value of 1, but only if it can't see you. The Revenant will go up to a speed value of 3 if it does see you, making it one of the fastest ghosts in Phasmophobia, but only if it has line of sight. Hello, hello, ghosty. It's slow. Okay. The demon is similar to the spirit in that the way you identify it is by starting a timer right when you smudge it. The demon regains the ability to hunt 1 minute after being smudged, as opposed to the spirit's 3 minutes. Again, every other ghost can hunt 1 minute and 30 seconds after being smudged, so if it hunts at all before that, you'll know it's a demon. The Oni can be hard to spot, but similar to the Phantom, you need to be watching to see how visible it is while hunting. The Oni is much more visible than normal ghosts, with a very quick blink while hunting. Again, here's a brief comparison. The Yokai can be tricky to identify, but the easiest way to tell if it's a Yokai is to hide near a spot where you know you can loop. Make sure there's some barrier between you and the ghost. The idea is to hide and use the comms or a flashlight to try to get the ghost's attention. With a low range of perception, the Yokai will not be able to find you, whereas other ghosts will. A good way to practice this is to head to Tanglewood, crouch behind the kitchen counter and start speaking over the comms. Alternatively, you can use your flashlight to try to get the ghost's attention. If it doesn't find you, you'll know it's a Yokai. The easiest way to identify the Hantu is to watch for the ghost giving off freezing breath while hunting. However, it will only do this if the breaker is off. The Hantu's speed will change depending on the temperature of the room it's in, being slower in warmer rooms and faster in colder rooms, and the Hantu will never speed up with line of sight. Here's a quick comparison between the faster and the slower Hantu. The Myling can be another tricky one to test for, as it's very quiet while hunting. The easiest way to test for a Myling is to turn on a flashlight while a ghost is hunting. If you don't hear footsteps until your flashlight is being disrupted, you'll know it's a Myling. It's worth noting that if the Myling is on a different floor, you will still be able to hear muffled footsteps, so don't let that confuse you. The easiest way to identify the Raiju is to see if it speeds up around any of your electronics. Typically, this can be tested by using a flashlight and seeing if it speeds up while nearby. The twins can be identified by their speed. There's a faster twin which is 10% faster than a normal ghost, and a slower twin which is 10% slower than a normal ghost. When the twins decide to hunt, they send out either the faster twin or the slower twin. So here's a quick comparison between the faster twin, the slower twin, and a normal speed ghost. The Obake is another very easy ghost to identify, having the ability to change ghost models while hunting. Keep an eye out. If you see it shapeshift, you'll know it's an Obake. When it comes to the Moroi, its speed will directly correlate to how much sanity you have. The lower your sanity, the faster the Moroi will be. If you're at 0 sanity, the Moroi will be incredibly fast, and will not slow down at all like the Rev or the Dio. And you'll know it's not a Hantu if you don't see cold breath. But the Moroi can be easy to confuse with the Thaye, but generally the Moroi will be slightly slower initially, and will also be repelled by a smudge stick for 7.5 seconds instead of the usual 5 seconds for any other ghost. Another easy way to differentiate the two is that the Moroi will speed up with line of sight, whereas the Thaye will not. Here's a brief comparison between the speed of the Moroi and the speed of the Thaye, starting at 0 sanity and upon entering the map for the first time. The easiest way to identify the Deogen is by seeing if it slows down a ton when it's close to you. When it catches up to you, the Dio will turn into the slowest ghost, but will be incredibly fast when you're far away from it. The Deogen knows where you are at all times, even when hiding. The only way to survive a Deogen is by looping it, which is very easy. The Thaye will be incredibly fast upon first entering the map, but as you spend time in the ghost room, the Thaye will slowly age and weaken over time, becoming incredibly slow. But if you're strictly speedrunning, the Thaye will always be incredibly fast, and will not speed up with line of sight. Just make sure it's not a Moroi. The list so far totals to 17 ghosts that you can identify in a single hunt. There is also a cheat sheet you can use that allows you to play different footstep speeds. If you want to check that out, that'll be in the description. Once you've ruled out all of those ghosts, there are still 7 ghosts remaining that are a bit more difficult to identify, but here are the easiest ways to identify them, and typically, it involves the process of elimination. Starting with the Banshee, this one takes a bit of persistence, but what you'll want to do is hold out a paramic. The Banshee has a unique scream that can only be heard through the paramic and that no other ghost can do. This is what it sounds like. Now, RNG can mess with this a bit, so typically I give the ghost 3 to 5 chances to respond on the paramic, just to see if that unique scream ever comes through. If I get mostly whispers or any other noise, I'll usually rule out the Banshee. It's also worth noting that the Banshee does a lot of singing events. So if you're getting a lot of those types of events, you might suspect it's a Banshee. The Mare takes some persistence as well, but I usually guess Mare once ruling out every other ghost. The Mare cannot turn on lights, so if you ever see the ghost turn on a light, you'll know it's not a Mare. The Mare is also a bit of an early hunter, being able to hunt at 60% sanity in the dark, as opposed to most other ghosts' 50%. If a light is on near a Mare, the average sanity it will be able to hunt at drops to 40%. And lastly, the Mare has a unique ability where it will sometimes immediately turn off a light switch after you've turned it on. Here's an example of that. The Shade is another ghost that I usually guess by the process of elimination. If the ghost ever hunts in the same room as you, you can rule out the Shade. The Shade will only hunt if it's not near you, and won't do events in the same room as you either. Not only that, but it won't do any interactions that result in EMF, writing, or blowing out the firelight if it's in the same room as you. Other than that, you can usually tell it's a Shade if it's generally not as active as most other ghosts. The Yurei can become very tricky to identify, but it does have a few unique abilities you can watch for. The main thing to watch for is any doors being slammed or double touched. When the Yurei does this, it will drain your sanity by 15%. Here's an example of that. The Yurei also has the ability to interact with the front door outside of an event or a hunt. These abilities aren't always reliable to wait for, so I typically guess the Yurei by the process of elimination. Moving on to my least favorite ghost in the game, the Goryo. The Goryo is the only ghost that can't change its favorite room, so with no evidence, the Goryo is basically impossible to identify without ruling out every other ghost. But you'll know it's not a Goryo if the ghost ever changes its favorite room. The Onryo has a simple test where if you light a candle next to a crucifix, it won't be able to use the crucifix without first blowing out the candle. The candle essentially acts as a secondary crucifix. Not only that, but if an Onryo ever blows out a total of 3 candles in succession, it has the ability to hunt immediately after doing so, no matter what your sanity is at. And the last ghost on this list is the Mimic. The Mimic has a very easy test. All you need to do is check the ghost's favorite room for orbs. The Mimic will always have ghost orbs, even if you have all the evidence turned off. That's all for now. Let me know if this video has helped you. If it did, make sure to subscribe. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.